Michael Arndt wrote Toy Story 3. How many of you, now this name you may know Diablo Cody. Okay, Diablo Cody, sorry about this, but was a stripper in Minneapolis and had a quirky little way about her, right? And she started writing blogs and she started writing different things here and there in Minneapolis. And a producer liked what he was reading on the blogs. He thought she had a fresh kind of voice to her and everything. All of a sudden he said, you know what, let me, give me one of your screenplays. I'm going to take it to a friend of mine, see what we can do with it. It was Juno. And she wrote Juno. Off of Juno, she started writing The United States of Tara for Steven Spielberg. So my point is you do not have to be there. I have many friends who are there and they have a zip code and that's it. You know, they're doing their thing and God bless them, but they're not any further along than most of you sitting here. So that's the first thing I want you to kind of get out of your head. Because the most important thing, the thing that will find its way to the screen, is a good story. A good story. Now, we're going to talk about that story. And what makes for a good story. Before we get into that, though, I want to let you know that with screenplays, it's not just a, how many, now some of you said you've been tackling screenplays, right? You've been sitting down and writing. How many have been actually, okay. How many of you work, and be honest, from an outline? Okay, good. Okay, if you don't work from an outline, your movie, your story will fold in on itself. I liken it to going, okay, see, I want to go to, I think I'm going to go to Michigan tomorrow. And you get in the car, and you go, do you have GPS? No. Do you have a map of any kind? No. I'm just going to get there. And it's like, you won't get there. You'll get someplace, but you won't get to your destination. It's the very same thing with a screenplay. You've got to be able to know where you're going. And the only way you know where you're going is if you start with an outline. Now, I'm not talking about an outline that's 3 pages long. I'm talking about an outline that's roughly 25 to 30 pages long. I'm talking about this scene happens here, this scene, this scene, this scene, from beginning to end. We know at every point where we are in the story. Does this make sense? Does that make sense? How many of you know Garrison Keillor? Who Garrison Keillor is? Okay, Garrison Keillor is a student of mine. And he came to me about a year ago, actually a little over a year ago. And he said, yes, he said, I have an idea for a screenplay. No, not an idea, because I have a screenplay. And he said, I'd like for you to read it. And he calls me GiGi. And he goes, so GiGi, I was wondering if you could, and I said, certainly, Mr. Keillor. He said, no, call me Garrison. So I was like, oh my God, how am I going to teach, what do I have to teach this man, right? He's one of the most prolific, you know, speakers of our day. And he has Meryl Streep's phone number on his speed dial. What am I going to teach Garrison Keillor? Well, Garrison does not write from an outline. He doesn't write his novels from an outline, and he doesn't write his books from an outline. So, I mean, he doesn't write his screenplays. His last movie was A Prairie Home Companion. I don't know if any of you saw it. It was terrible. And he knows it was terrible. He knows it was terrible. He goes, Robert Altman, he robbed me. He robbed me of my movie, GiGi, and I'm doing it again my way. You know, he's very big and austere, and you don't mess with him. And I said, okay, great. So he wants to do A Prairie Home Companion again. He gave me 80 pages, read the first page, I was riveted. All right, I have nothing to teach this man. Got to the second page, oh my God, it was unreadable. Third page, worse than the second. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I thought, oh, what am I gonna say to him? What am I gonna say to him? And I'm not kidding you when I tell you this. Before I first met him, the first day I met him, I was up for 24 hours because I was in my head. How am I gonna teach Garrison Keillor? And then it came to me after 24 hours of being up, I just treat him like anybody else. It's not fair to treat him unlike anybody else. So we sat down and I said, do you work from an outline? He goes, oh, no. And I said, right. I said, yeah, I can tell. I can tell. And he was, nobody talks to Garrison Keillor like that, you know, and he said, he's like, but I don't know, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I said, I think the problem you're running into, the reason why the last 20 pages, the last 25 pages aren't working for you is because you don't know where you're going. You're just writing, because that's what Garrison Keillor does. And believe me, sitting with this man for even an hour or 2 hours is like having your own Prairie Home Companion thing, because he will go on and on and on and on and on. So after we kind of broke that down, he started to realize, okay. I said, do you feel confident about writing them? No, I'm not going to do that. And he didn't. He didn't, ever. I couldn't. However, by the time we got through working together, after about 4 months, he agreed to start working on an outline. So I found that to be personally, that was my personal victory. And since then, we've been in each other's lives and have become very good friends. And he told me, I need to write from an outline. That is what I have to do because I don't know where I'm going. So I'm telling you guys, if you don't know where you're going, it won't happen. Very, very, very important. Screenplays, the format, okay? How are screenplays broken down? Every screenplay has 3 acts. 1, 2, 3. Your first act, and by the way, a screenplay in length, if people tell you, oh, a screenplay can be anywhere from 115 to 120 pages, no, not anymore, not today. It has to be anywhere from 90 to 100 pages. And the reason being is every page is money to the production company. And the last 10 pages of a screenplay are the pages that the producer and the director fight over. So you want to make sure you've cushioned yourself with being able for them to afford to fight over those 10. Basically, anyone's happy with a 100-page screenplay. If you're at 90, you can afford that fight. Does that make sense? You have those 10 you can afford. So you have the first act. Act 1 is anywhere from 18 to 23 pages is Act 1. Act 2, anywhere from 23 to 70. And then the balance of the screenplay, 70, 75 to 100, let's say 100. Now, I want to ask you real quickly, and please don't feel like you can't tell me this, or just guess. What do we think? Let's just spitball. What do we think the most common mistakes of writing a screenplay are? What would you think they are?
Not explaining everything.
Okay, almost. It actually in a different way.
I would say probably tell rather than show.
Almost on the nose.
Exposition.
Excellent.
Write more as a novel as opposed to a visual.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to tell, but evoke.
Yes.
To be evocative.
Exactly. All right. All right. Sometimes not enough. Okay? Sometimes. But more than often, too much. Too much. I'm telling you right now, when you've got people who read, and they are reading, these interns are reading 2, 3, 5 scripts a day, sometimes 7. They don't want to know The SUV pulled slowly into the parking lot, and then guess what? It parked. And then guess what? Someone opened the door. And and they're sitting there going, oh, this is killing me. This is killing me. And so what you have to do is you have to be economic with what you're saying. You have to make it active. Always, always active. I teach, and I'll discuss this at the end, I teach seminars, classes, and then I also teach one-on-one consults for people who want to craft screenplays. And one of the easiest mistakes is not to keep your action active. Now, I'm not talking about we need big set pieces and we need things bouncing off the ceiling. That's not active. A person in a coma is active. They can have an active state. Did anyone see The Descendants? Okay, and also too, movies I'm going to refer to throughout the evening. Forgive me, a lot of them are very, very old, but I pretty much can assume that everybody has seen them. But The Descendants, the wife in a coma. Now, she was, at some point, did you not think that she would maybe open her eyes? Because there was an activeness in between her character and George Clooney's character. There was something going on. So I'm not saying that we need skyrockets or fireworks, but what I am saying is we need something to be happening in the scene. If your action, okay, does not inform the scene or the story, if you can take that action and you can lift it out and it doesn't make a difference as to the story, then it's fat. Then it's just fat and it needs to go. So that's one of the things, yes, overriding the exposition and the dialogue and the action. Another is what I like to refer to as thought bubbles. Okay? A thought bubble is when we have a character who we say, John lifts his hand to his heart. He's worried that his wife might know that he just cheated on her. How do we know that? How do you know that if you're watching something on the screen, you're watching a movie, and he does this, how do you know that that's what he's thinking? You don't know what he's thinking. So when we put that down and we force a reader to read this, again, they're like, it's fat, show it. If you can show something, always opt for showing it as opposed to telling it. Always. Does that make sense? It keeps it active. Yes?
Can you give an example of how you would take John lifts his hand to his heart, he's worried? How did that show up evocatively on the screen?
Yeah, it would be, John tentatively approaches the door. He tiptoes through, he slowly takes off his shirt, he smells his body, and then goes to the shower or something. He's always active. He's not thinking about something, he's doing it. So that's how we would tackle that. Yeah?
Yeah, but when you do the dialogue, you can do the paren underneath. Like if you want, it can't be very long,
Yeah.
But you can, if it's a gesture or some already, always puts his hand up to his face or something, you can put that in the
You can, again, fatty. Even though it's shorter, still fatty. That's one of the things that I really am on my students about, because it's directing, basically. And when a director reads that, does everyone know what he's talking about? Parentheticals underneath the character's name. So if it's steps to the side or puts his hand on his face or what have you, we are telling that character how we want them to be. Now, I agree with you. Sometimes, and I use them, sometimes you need a parenthetical, okay? You need a specific action in order to inform the story and to move it along for the character. But a lot of times, it just still is fact, and we can extract it, and it won't make a difference to the story.
You don't want to direct the scene, you want to direct.
That's exactly right. You don't want to direct the scene. Ever, ever, ever. Because that's the director's job. You are the writer. Whole different. Okay, so let's talk about the first act. A little bit about the first act. First act. Who has even heard heard of what an inciting incident is? Good, 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 good. Okay, what is it?
It's a thing that happened that trips the story, makes it, sends it on its way.
Very good. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. An inciting incident is an event or an incident at the beginning of the script, okay, that kicks everything into motion. Kicks everything into motion, okay? You need an inciting incident when you write your script. And we'll give you some examples, just so you're kind of like, well, I don't get that. Also, inciting incident should happen anywhere by page 3 to maybe page 8 or 10. Certainly not further than 10, because you want to stop your act, or your first act, around no later than 23. So here's an inciting incident. Something's got to give. This is a bad example, by the way, because Something's Got to Give is an inordinately long movie. But in terms of the rhythm of it, it happens where it's supposed to in the story. So how many of you have seen Something's Got to Give? Diane Keaton, Jack Nicholson, right? Okay. So what do we have? We have the Harry, who is dating the daughter of Diane Keaton. And Diane Keaton is, she and her sister are there for the weekend at her beach house, yada yada. Here comes Harry. Oh my God, who are you? Thinks he's breaking in. Bottom line is, these two people, Diane Keaton and Jack Nicholson, hate each other. They will never say that, but they do. They don't like each other. They don't like the way they want, anything about the other. So Jack Nicholson goes and he's fooling around with her daughter. What happens? He has a heart attack. He has a heart attack. Goes to the hospital. She meets beautiful Keanu Reeves, and it goes on and on and on. He gets checked out. He's fine. He goes to leave. He drops over again. Keanu Reeves says, "I can't let you go home, Harry." He's like, "You have to go back to the hospital." "No, I don't want to go back home." "Okay, I'll make you a deal. You don't have to go back to the hospital, but you have to have someone here who can take care of you." All eyes shoot to Diane Keaton, and she's like, "Oh, no. Okay, end of Act 1. That's the end of Act 1, because now he's at the house, which we need for the story to continue. But if he did not have that heart attack, that inciting incident, we would not be where we need to be in the story. Does that make sense? Okay? I'll give you one. I want to ask you guys what you think they are. Jaws. Have you guys seen Jaws?
Someone gets eaten in the Black Sea.
The girl. Who said the girl?
The girl.
That's exactly right. The first scene. Okay, they're having the bonfire, da-da-da. All of a sudden, she's out. She's skinny dipping. Yank. Right under. Boom. Inciting incident. Right there. Right there. It's not until they decide we're not closing this beach that we end Act 1. Okay? Big.
Zola.
Yes. Yes. You don't have to raise your hand. Just scream out. That's fine. Yes. Zolar. He's at the thing, and he's like, "I wish I were big." It doesn't end with him being. It doesn't end. Act 1 doesn't end with him being big. Where does Act 1? Where do we think Act 1 ends? What?
That's when he becomes big.
Not even when he becomes big.
It goes to sleep.
Nope. When do things completely change for him? He's still in his house. He's
He's in the toy store.
a little bit further back. When he goes to New York and his friend Billy leaves him at the YMCA. And then it fades to black. And that's the end of Act 1. Now he's welcome to his new life as an adult, basically. So that is an inciting incident. Some incident has to happen that kicks off the rest of the story.
So Gigi, in
Yeah.
the Something's Gotta Give, was it the first heart attack, the collapsing, or Diane Keaton saying no, no, no?
First heart attack.
First heart attack.
First heart attack. He goes down. He's got to get there, and then, so yes. No, no, no is, I'm not taking him, take him. Boom, he's there. End of Act 1. So that's a good question, though. Okay, so that has to happen. Oh, quickly. just real quick, Jerry Maguire. What do we think the inciting incident of Jerry Maguire is?
No, when he writes the thing.
Yes, when he writes the mission statement. The mission statement is his downfall. But he writes the mission statement, he regrets writing the mission statement, but if he doesn't write it, the rest of the movie doesn't happen. Okay, so Act 2. Act 2 is primarily the meat of the story, okay? If Act 1 is setting it up, Act 2, we're in. We're ready. We're ready to take the ride. You're strapped on. We're good to go. It's the toughest part of the script, bar none. I have my students who will sit there and just swear at me and cry. And, you know, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do the outline for Act 2. And I just sit there and I go, I know, I get it. It is the hardest act to write because it's your bulk of your story. We need the, in Act 2, it's where most of our conflict comes. It's where most of our obstacles come, yeah? Without obstacles, you guys, you don't have a movie. I don't care how big your movie is. I don't care how small your movie is. If you don't have obstacles, you don't have a movie. If you don't have conflict, you don't have a movie. If things go along and they just keep going and nothing's happening and nobody's challenging anybody and no one's challenging our characters to think and to grow, we don't have a story, right? So you want to put in as much conflict as possible. And it doesn't have to be big. Okay, so how many of you saw the King's Speech? Okay, a lot of you. Okay, so King's Speech. He can't talk. Doing this would kill him, okay? So it's what's important to the character. And all of a sudden he has to read this speech. Him ramping up to be able to read this thing, to calm the nerves of his people, that is huge. All of a sudden, reading a few words on a piece of paper takes on a whole different meaning because we know how important it is to him. Now to any of you, no problem. But to this man, huge, huge stakes. Okay, and we'll talk about stakes in a second. But that's what we need. We need the script to get off the ground. We need conflict. We need obstacles. We need to challenge our characters. And the other thing is, with your conflict, they can be internal, yeah, or they can be external. It can be a fight between you and me, or it can be the King's Speech in a very difficult battle within himself. It can be either or. But I'll tell you what, they better be interesting. They better have you riveted as a reader and as a person watching the movie. Otherwise, you're going to check out. You're not going to care. You're not going to care. I had someone who wanted to work with me a while back. I'm not speaking out of school because you don't know who she is, and it wasn't even here actually. And she said, "I want to work with you. I want to write a story." And I said, "Okay, what's it about?" She goes, "I don't know." And that's fine, because you know what? A lot of times we don't know. And I said, "Okay, well, you know what? Tell me about your life. What about it, you know?" She was telling me about it. I found it very interesting. And I said, "Well, how about this? What do you think of this?" "No, I don't want to write that." "Fine, fine." And so we started talking some more, and she said, I just want to inspire people. I just want to put something on the page that's inspiring, that changes lives. That's all I want to do." "What's your story?" "I don't know, I just want to write something inspiring." And we did this back and forth for actually 2 sessions. And we never got to a place where she was specific, because you cannot write in a vacuum. You cannot write in just possibilities and maybes and this. You have to get specific with your story, with your characters, and we need to be invested. Yes?
How do you write internal conflict in the script without giving too much fat?
Yes, I do know. That's a good question, actually. I mean, think of the movie Castaway, right? Okay, here's Tom Hanks. He's pretty much on his own. He carries the whole movie. But whether you like it or not, I would challenge anybody to say that there wasn't some kind of conflict with either nature or something internal, something that meant something to him. I mean, right, when he lost Wilson, the ball, did we feel like he was losing a friend? When we actually put stock in this volleyball, you know? And so there, it's in a very skilled way that you have to do it. But it is the essence of the person and how they come out. I can't just tell you right now, like, okay, this is how you would do it. But what I'm saying is, if you gave me a script and you said, this is my story, and this person is, what do you call it when they don't want to leave the house? Agoraphobic or? Agoraphobic, okay. Everything that we would need to see in that person, if there's, is a tentativeness, right? Is a, she tries to open the door and just breaks into flop sweat. Again, active. What happens when this person tries to do something? What happens to them? That is the telling of how a person will react, basically. We all have our tells. We all have our own fears. All of us, we have our own hang-ups. We have our own stuff. And we all react differently when something comes up. And it's if you took a camera and you followed some of us around, you would be able to see how they react to something. And that's what you would basically put on the page. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Okay, good. Okay, if you have a choice between the easy choice and the hard choice, take the hard choice. Take the more difficult choice. Don't give your character an easy way out. That is boring. That is predictable. Always give them something else that challenges them, that makes them have to work for what they want. They have to work for what they want. So always, choice between easy, hard, always go hard. Much more interesting. Better yet, rock in a hard place. Two negatives, because then we're wondering as an audience, which one are they going to take? Much more interesting. Okay, Act 3. Act 3 wraps up the story. We arrive at our destination in Act 3. For good or for bad, we're there. But in Act 3, and it happens in anything from horror to romantic comedy, we need that one more obstacle, right? You see Act 3, you see the end of Act 2, beginning of Act 3. We think the guy and the girl are never going to see each other again. They've resigned themselves to it. Da-da-da-da. Oh, guess what? We realize that we're meant for each other. The guy goes on some crazy mad chase, only to find out that she's gotten on a plane to Bora Bora or somewhere, and now he's got to find a way. So we have one last big obstacle in Act 3. It's not smooth sailing. Once we're over it, then we're at the end of our movie. Do you guys, does that make sense? Are you thinking of some movies and you kind of go, oh yeah, well, Glenn Close at the end, you think she's dead, well, she comes out the town and not so much. So, so that's what we're looking for, that kind of, again. Okay, let's see. Okay, you guys, so now we know screenplay, 3 acts, how long it is, where we need our inciting incident, that we need obstacles, that we need conflict. Let's talk about quickly what makes for a good story. Okay, what makes for a good story? What are the components? Yeah.
Relatability.
What is that? I'm sorry.
Relatability.
Relatability. That's very good. That's very good. That's one that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. That's excellent. That's exactly right. Perfect. Perfect answer. But yes, we have a bunch of different things. Now, I can't cover them all tonight. We're going to just talk about a couple of them. Yeah?
That's the plot and a subplot.
Plot, okay, yes. We have plot. We have point of view. We have theme. We have dialogue. All of these things make for a good story. Unfortunately, again, I can't get into them because they take a little long. Now, this is where I segue, all right, and tell you that I'm teaching a class at the Westport Writers Workshop on July 14th, and it's from 10 to 3. I've taught it before. It's lots of fun. It's from, on a Saturday, and it's an immersion. And so it's basically taking this and really going to town with it. And if you really want to know the nitty-gritty, then that's a real fun class to take. I'm teaching it actually this Saturday in Danbury, but I think we're full up. One of the first things, though, is strong stakes. Stakes. I can't say it enough. We need our characters to have stakes. They can be personal, they can be external, they can be internal, I don't care. But they have to want something. Something has to be at stake, okay, for this story to continue. Again, at stake, King's speech. He needed to get through this speech. Huge stake for him. Jerry Maguire. The stakes that Jerry has is he's got one player. That's his lifeblood. That's it. He loses Rod Tidwell, game over, literally. And so he's got to hold on to him with whatever he can. He's got to, you know, it's the whole, help me, help you. He gets to that point, you know. He's just like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do. And that says it all. His stakes are huge. His livelihood is on the line. Let's see. Stakes, okay? So this is the other thing about stakes real quick. Stakes must be life-altering. Must be life-altering for the character. Good or bad, right or wrong, life-altering. In one of my favorite movies of all time is Tootsie. And I love that the line here is Michael Dorsey, right? He's not hireable. He can't be hired as an actor. He wants to put on this play, doesn't have the money, he's working as a waiter. Not gonna happen. So his agent says, or he tells his agent, he says, are you telling me that no one in New York will work with me? And he says, no, Michael, that's too limited. No one in Hollywood will work with you either. You are unhireable, you know? And he's like, oh yeah? Boom, now we're into Act 2.